There is, at the outset, a very obvious and almost facile connection between the war in Vietnam and the struggle I and others have been waging in America. A few years ago, there was a shining moment in that struggle. It seemed as if there was a real promise of hope for the poor, both black and white, through the poverty program. There were experiments, hopes, new beginnings. Then came the buildup in Vietnam. And I watched this program broken and eviscerated, as if it were some idle political plaything of a society gone mad on war. And I knew that what America would never invest the necessary funds or energies in rehabilitation of its poor, so long as adventures like Vietnam continued to draw men and skills and money like some demonic, destructive suction tube. So I was increasingly compelled to see the war as an enemy of the poor and to attack it as such. Perhaps a more tragic recognition of reality took place when it became clear to me that the war was doing far more than devastating the hopes of the poor at home. It was sending their sons and their brothers and their husbands to fight and die in extraordinarily high proportions relative to the rest of the population. We were taking the black young men who had been crippled by our society and sending them 8,000 miles away to guarantee liberties in Southeast Asia, which they had not found in Southwest Georgia and East Harlem. And so we have been repeatedly faced with the cruel irony of watching Negro and white boys on TV screens as they kill and die together for a nation that has been unable to seat them together in the same schools. And so we watch them in brutal solidarity burning the huts of a poor village. But we realize that they would hardly live on the same block in Chicago. I could not be silent in the face of such cruel manipulation of the poor. That was an excerpt from Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech he gave April 4th, 1967, called Beyond Vietnam. At that point, the Vietnam War was a little over 10 years old, and in 2 years, the U.S. would send in 150,000 more troops to continue the war effort. Dr. King's anti-war stance cost him support, and his righteous dissent from the war had him labeled a traitor. Dr. King understood the intersection of U.S. imperial might, racism at home and abroad, the contradiction of militaristic police repression and nonviolence as a strategy, and of course, how America will mine its poor as fodder for the war machine. Tonight, as we look back at the 50-year aftermath of the fall of Saigon, what lessons have been learned from the war in Vietnam? In this current era of proxy wars, the facelessness of drone warfare, and end to conscription, have these functioned to cripple a once vibrant anti-war movement? Join us as we look back at what led us into an almost 20-year conflict, costing the lives of nearly 4 million people.